Hey everyone, we're here in chapter 26. Here on slide 11, we're talking about the digestive system. Specifically in this video, we'll talk about the location of organs within the abdominal pelvic cavity. You may recall that we have many cavities, the largest ones being cranial, spinal, thoracic, and then several within thoracic, and then abdominal pelvic, and then you have a few within abdominal pelvic. There's the abdominal section, there's the pelvic section, and then within both, you have something called the peritoneal cavity. So the peritoneal cavity is within the abdominal as well as a little bit of the pelvic cavity. It's a cavity within a cavity. It's surrounding many, but not all of internal abdominal organs. If you take a look at this cadaver picture right here, this is the lower left quadrant. So you can see the ileum right here. This person is pulling aside abdominal organs, and you can see the peritoneum. The peritoneum is a serous membrane that helps protect, lubricate abdominal organs, because there's a lot of movement, and our torso, our abdominal organs move a lot as we bend around. This would be the parietal pericardium. And then over here would be visceral. Visceral is against the organ. And that space in between would contain serous fluid, and serous fluid is very lubricating. It slides across each other really easily, minimize friction. So again, the serous fluid would be found in this space right here. In our nice schematic diagrams, you have two of them over here. I like each of them for different reasons. In this diagram right here, you can see that the parietal pericardium is against the abdominal wall. I'm tracing it here in green. And then you have the visceral peritoneum that's going against the organ. You can see the liver right here. You can see the stomach right here. And intestinal parts that are shown in this mid-sagittal cut. Similarly, you can see the same thing over here on the right. It just shows organs in a different way. I like that this highlights the peritoneal cavity in yellow. I highly suggest, if you have trouble envisioning this, click on this link or search YouTube for anatomy peritoneal cavity. They give a really good explanation of these of what organs are in and out and how this membrane is formed. If I didn't mention it earlier, we're here on slide 11, and here we are going to slide 12. Not all organs are within the peritoneal cavity. Many, but not all organs are within the peritoneal cavity. The ones that are, they're called intraperitoneal organs. They're within the peritoneal cavity. Let me trace the parietal, let me trace the visceral peritoneum. That'd be the easiest to draw. Visceral peritoneum surrounds the liver. That's what I just covered right now. It surrounds the stomach. It surrounds intestines, intestines, large intestines, some parts of it. We'll talk about what these connecting pieces are here in a second, but everything there in green, that's visceral peritoneum. Organs that are surrounded by visceral peritoneum include the stomach, the liver, the jejunum, and the ileum. These are second and third parts of the small intestines. The cecum, which is the beginning of the large intestines. Transverse colon, which is the part of the large intestines that crosses over from upper right, left, or right upper quadrant to left upper quadrant. And then the sigmoid colon, this is the last part of large intestines. So a lot of different organs, not the easiest to remember per se. So I think the easiest way to remember this is remembering what's not intraperitoneal, which organs are not within the peritoneal cavity. The ones that aren't are behind, they're posterior to the peritoneal cavity. Let me circle some here in pink. You can see the pancreas right here. You can see the part, this is the duodenum, let me write that down. You can see part of the large intestines. You can see the rectum over here. Those are examples of things that are not, they're behind. They're not in the peritoneal cavity, they're behind it. The way to remember this, of all organs, not just digestive organs, all organs that are retroperitoneal, that lie outside of the visceral peritoneum, is this acronym SADPUCKER. S is for suprarenal, and it's kind of unfortunate because I haven't taught it as that word. Suprarenal is the exact same thing as adrenal, you know, the adrenal gland. So suprarenal or adrenal. A is for aorta and inferior vena cava, those two largest blood vessels within the abdominal pelvic cavity. It's not shown here, but they are retroperitoneal. The duodenum, the pancreas, the ureters. The C is for colon, specifically the ascending and descending parts of the large intestines. Colon implies large intestines. The kidneys are retroperitoneal. It makes sense that the kidneys, the ureters, and the adrenal glands are all retroperitoneal. They're all right next to each other or connected to each other. The esophagus is mostly in the thoracic cavity, but there's a little bit that extends in through the diaphragm when it connects to the stomach. So the esophagus is also retroperitoneal, and then the rectum. So suprarenal, aorta, duodenum, pancreas, ureters, colon, specifically the ascending and descending parts of the large intestines, kidneys, esophagus, and rectum, SADPUCKER. This is a way to remember which ones are retroperitoneal. So the big difference is that retroperitoneal organs, they lie outside of the visceral peritoneum. The outermost layer, instead of it being peritoneum, is dense irregular connective tissue. It's called that adventitia layer. And so they're more fixed inside of the body while the other organs can move around a bit more. I think it'll help to see at least a few of these organs with a cadaver. So I'm going to switch to complete or Ackland's for a second. Here you can see the inside of the abdominal pelvic cavity, of course. Here in pink, whoops, too much. This is the pancreas. The duodenum is the first part of the small intestines. Whoops. And so this duodenum here is the first, that's retroperitoneal. You can see how far back it is. It's connected to the stomach, which is not shown here. The stomach should come out like that, not that big, but it should come out more anteriorly. And let's switch to a different one where you can see the kidneys, adrenal gland, and ureter. Here, even the pancreas and duodenum have been removed. You can see the kidneys all the way back here. They're pretty far back. Adrenal glands sit on top, and then ureters are these tubes that go down to the urinary bladder. Here are the ureters. So that's what we mean by a retroperitoneal. They're very far back. You may have noticed that the way I connected the peritoneal membranes, like between the liver and the stomach and then to the intestines, there are these weird connecting points. These connecting membranes of peritoneum, they're called mesenteries. Mesenteries are fused double sheets of peritoneal membrane. So you've got parietal, visceral, attached to visceral and parietal. They're fused sheets of peritoneal membrane. And they help suspend the intestines and the stomach and liver. As we'll see here in a second. They help stabilize positions. They can see that there's a lot of blood and lymph vessels and nerves. This is mesentery, this yellowish stuff. This is mesentery. It's fused, fatty, full of blood vessels and nerves and lymph tissue that's holding everything together. If you remember our fetal pig dissection, when we pulled the intestines apart, there's stuff connecting it, and we could cut at that and pull it out as a tube. What we were cutting was mesentery. If it's connecting the small intestines, the jejunum and ileum together, that's called mesentery proper, and that's what we see. That's what we see in this image. This is small intestines being held together. If it's holding together the large intestines, we call that mesocolon. Different parts of the colon, mesocolon. If it's between the stomach and the liver, you can see the stomach in this cadaver picture right here. And then the liver has been cut, but it'll be coming this way. What's connecting the liver and the stomach in between, that's lesser omentum. Let me clear that so you can see it better. It's this tissue. That's the lesser omentum. The greater omentum is a really interesting one. Take a look at this diagram first on the right. It's attached to this long part of the stomach, and it drapes down on top of the intestines, both large and small. So it's not, it is connected to the intestines, but it's first drapes over it like an apron. And it's also it's very fatty. It's normal for it to have a decent amount of fat, and it can, vary person to person, but there's normally fat there. This is the greater omentum. It has a thick layer of adipose that serves as an energy reserve and insulation. So mesentery proper connects small intestines, mesocolon connects large intestines, lesser omentum, stomach to liver, greater omentum, stomach across, draping over the intestines. That wraps up this video on peritoneum and mesenteries. In the next video, we'll continue going over the pathway that food would take as we eat it and what happens along the way. Thanks for watching. Please let me know of any questions. I'll see you in the next video.